Hello, one and all. Welcome back to a new episode of the weekly movie news here on Real Talk. I am Joel, and I'm here to give you out all the awesome information that just came out this week for movies. And guess what? We got quite a bit of news coming out this week, so it's always a good thing to expect every Friday. So, before I move any further, please, if you can, go down to the like button and click that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it after all the work that I do for this video. And if I'm a bum, you don't know that. So it's a beautiful thing about the like button. You can help me and I can help you. So go ahead and click that like button. But as well as you can, please comment on some of these articles that I will be talking about. The topics will be right here on your left, right. But you know where they are. They're right there. And so if you want to go right to those topics, there you go. Click on those little buttons right there, those annotations on the text, and it will take you straight to that conversation that I will be doing. So, without further ado, I think that it's time we start diving into the news, why don't we? So we have a lot to talk about, so let me jump right into the first thing we're going to be talking about, and it's a massive news that I believe is worth talking about. So, let me go on and read this article, and I'll give you my intake on it. So, Donald Glover is going to be in the new Star Wars solo film, literally solo film of Han Solo, and he'll be playing Lando Calrissian. And I'm going to read this little news bit before I give my little input on the news that's going to be happening. So, StarWars.com made it official in confirming that Donald Glover will be portraying the popular Star Wars character Lando Calrissian in the upcoming Han Solo film directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. It's worth noting that Glover has had a couple good years on the movie screen as well as in the television screens. While this was pleasant news, it should come as no surprise since the Star Wars character was confirmed to be returning in 2018, with Donald Glover being the top candidate back in August. Glover is known for his smooth yet charming humor, much like Billy D. Williams, who portrayed the character in The Empire Strikes Back in 1980. So, Glover's hot run won't start then since he's confirmed to also be in the upcoming Spider-Man Homecoming film set for 2017. And the Han Solo film is set to hit theaters May 25th, 2018. So, it's a lot to digest. Obviously, this man, Donald Glover, should come to no surprise to all of you people, especially if you've seen the Martian film that came out last year with Matt Damon. That was a great movie, a really great movie, and I enjoyed it from beginning to end. And one of the best things about it was Donald Glover. He was one of the supporting characters in it, and he was very funny. He was very charming, much like Billy D. Williams in The Empire Strikes Back. So that's a great comparison that you could do for Donald Glover. And he's also been in the TV show Atlanta, and that's a pretty good show, and he's very good in it. So there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to do a good job portraying Lando Calrissian. The biggest thing is that he's going to be in the Spider-Man movie a year before that. So there's definitely a lot to see within between his range, and we could get a little sneak preview at his character next year in Spider-Man Homecoming. And it's going to be very interesting. I really am interested to see what they do with the Lando Calrissian character in the Star Wars movie, because obviously, if you watch The Empire Strikes Back, the two kind of separated, not separated, but they kind of came together on a bad note, especially with Lando double-crossing his friend, Han Solo. And, the two have a complicated history from what it's worth. And it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with these two characters, Han Solo and Lando Calrissian. Harrison Ford and Billy D. Williams, they worked so well together in the movie, and you can't ask for better performances from Harrison Ford in that Star Wars movie. That was his best Star Wars flick to this date, and seriously, one of my favorite characters of all time in Han Solo. So as for Lando, I think that Lando has that charm, he has that humor that Billy D. Williams really had a natural charisma to him, and so he was able to breathe life into this character that George Lucas probably roughly made, and the complicated history. But Billy D. Williams, I felt, added a lot into that role, and I think that Donald Glover is going to do very much of the same thing. Obviously, he's going to be a lot younger, or he's portraying a younger Lando Calrissian, as is whoever's going to be portraying Han Solo. So that's an interesting combination you're going to have there. I think that to get that to Harrison Ford and Billy D. Williams chemistry, I think it's very crucial to the two characters, and it should do a justice to the original 1980 Empire Strikes Back movie, which Lando made his debut in. As far as him in Return of the Jedi, he was all right. Um, it seems like everyone's characters kind of took a step back in Return of the Jedi a bit, just to kind of like enjoy the ride again, kind of like in A New Hope. Whereas in Empire Strikes Back, man, these characters were just so grounded, and we got so much to. We learned so much from these characters. It was definitely more of a character development movie. And to me, it was always intriguing to see the history that Lando and Han Solo had, because they did such a great job in The Empire Strikes Back. You're like, yes, I get it. I get it. They have a history. It works. And I'm going to follow through with it. But it's another thing to try to really bring this to life and bring these adventures to the big screen. And an interesting thing is that the directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, both well known for the Lego Movie. Just that's a great movie. I love the Lego Movie. It was hilarious from beginning to end, and I think that they know exactly what type of character Lando is going to be. Fun fact: if you've ever seen the Lego Movie, I think Lando already made an appearance in it. I can't remember because there was a little Millennium Falcon cameo, and I think Han Solo and Chewbacca were there. I can't remember if Lando was, but they already wrote a little bit for Lando right there, so that was kind of cool. A little nice toss note for that. But what do you guys think of Glover, dude? Do you think he's a great do you think he's a great choice for Billy D. Williams' Lando Calrissian, or do you think someone else should have done it? I honestly think this is a great casting, and I think it's perfect from everything from the humor to his seriousness, and he brings a lot of credentials to the table, and I'm really excited to see him in the not the Amazing Spider-Man, but the Spider-Man Homecoming movie coming out next year. I think we're going to get a good preview of his character in that. So comment below and let me know what you think about that story. We're moving on. So let's move on to a little bit of Hollywood, a little Hollywood rivalry. I think it's very friendly. It's a friendly Hollywood rivalry going on between two of the hottest actresses, not just physically, but obviously as far as like their streaks of movies that they've been doing, the box office success that both of them have, even their Oscar performances. They have great movie performances that just make them Hollywood royalty. And I think that Scarlett Johansson and Jennifer Lawrence, you can't ask for two bigger Hollywood stars, female stars, in the whole realm of filmmaking. And it looks like the two of them will be butting heads in characters. This is an interesting little thing and little story that I found, and I think that's very interesting to bring up because you don't get really many Hollywood rivalries going on anymore. There's never like butting heads between two stars. But this is obviously friendly, so it's nothing like the olden days where there was a huge rivalry going on, and two actors really try to battle at each other in the box office. It's more about studios nowadays, but. Looks like, I'm going to read this bit before I give my intake. Looks like two of Hollywood's hottest actresses will be butting heads in two separate biopics portraying the same character. According to a brand new report from THR, it appears that Jennifer Lawrence and Scarlett Johansson have both agreed on to portray legendary novelist Zelda Fitzgerald in two separate movies. Jennifer Lawrence will be taking on the role in the film called Zelda, directed by Ron Howard, while Johansson will be playing the same character in the film titled The Beautiful and the Damned, which is taken from one of the books, taken from the title of one of the books that she wrote back in the early days. But the title comes from the novel and from the author. So neither film has a release date, but both will dive into the character's troubled past. I can't read. Within worth telling, within her lifetime. Within her marriage, mental illness, and adversity, the story is definitely one worth telling since Zelda was also married to fellow famous author F. Scott Fitzgerald. While there are no confirmed dates on either movies, it's widely speculated that the films will come out sometime during the 2018 Oscar season. So, really interesting. Like I said, I've never seen bigger stars like these kind of like butting heads in the same character. Not even for males. I don't think I've seen any competition for male actors going together and butting heads in the same exact Oscar season. I've seen Ashton Kutcher and Michael Fassbender perform as Steve Jobs. That's the most recent I can think of, but those weren't really the same year. Also, Michael Fassbender's a little more prestigious amongst the Academy Awards community, I guess, and amongst the critics. Whereas Ashton Kutcher is definitely more of the comedy and kind of like the Mila Kunis exactly like the Mila Kunis of Hollywood. It's for males. It's very much a pretty face. He can act, but at the same time, he's not known for his Oscar-winning performances because he doesn't have any. Whereas Michael Fassbender has plenty of those, and he brings such prestige and such classiness to the roles that he does. Much like these two actresses, in Jennifer Lawrence and Scarlett Johansson, who both have success at the Academy Awards, but I'm really interested to see this, not because of the story of Zelda Fitzgerald. I've never heard of Zelda Fitzgerald. I've heard of F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I did know that he had a wife, and she was also an author, but I didn't know her and her book titles, which I should probably do a little bit before I watch this biopic. But biopics are very much a hot topic for any actors trying to get an Oscar or into the Oscars, trying to get a nomination. It's really easy to do that. But as far as the Zelda film goes, it's directed by Ron Howard, so you can't really ask for a better director during Oscar season than Ron Howard, because he has a lot of success at the Academy Awards. And when you put him with a tremendous actress like Jennifer Lawrence, you can only expect Oscar, recognition. Even whenever she was in American Hustle, directed by David O. Russell, she previously had nominations with the same director, but they didn't. The second time wasn't as successful as the first one. But this time, Jennifer Lawrence might have picked the right train to go with. As for Scarlett Johansson, she's an actress of her own right. I think she's very much more successful on her own. Like, she doesn't really need a tremendous director to really push her towards Oscar season. We've seen that before in the movie Under the Skin, which was, really, really had good direction, but I think mainly the reason why it was successful is because of Scarlett Johansson, whereas Jennifer Lawrence kind of benefits better from good directors, because we've seen her in really good movies and Oscar-winning movies, but then we've seen her in some other movies that are just like not up to par with other stuff that she's been doing previously, like X-Men Apocalypse, or even some of the Hunger Game movies. Those are okay movies, but they're not Oscar-winning movies. And she's had those, so it's interesting to see which direction both of these women will go. Both very prestiged actresses, and I can't wait to see what both of them bring to the table. I really can't wait. So let me know in the comments below, what movie are you looking forward to most? The one with Ron Howard and not Scarlett Johansson, but Jennifer Lawrence, or the Scarlett Johansson film? So let me know in the comments below. That'd be great. Let's move on to another topic that I think really intrigued me, not just because I love the first movie of this franchise, I guess now, but because I'm a huge fan of sci-fi films, and that is the Edge of Tomorrow sequel. There's been a lot of buzz going on for the sequel after 2 years. I remember the first movie when it came out in 2014. I loved it. It was one of my favorite films of the year. It was definitely that year's Mad Max. It just didn't have enough. It didn't have enough space. It didn't have enough time, and really, it didn't have much of a chance to perform at the box office, because it was in between the X-Men Days of Future Past craze and Guardians of the Galaxy craze and Winter Soldier craze. Whereas Mad Max was a little more. It was a little easier playing field, because you had some smaller films, but you didn't have huge successful movies, kind of like squeezing the life out of its box office performance. But I think The Edge of Tomorrow was just as good, if not better, than Mad Max, because of its complicated storyline, because of its unique storytelling ability, and the fact that it's an original film, that it's not from a franchise. It's not a reboot, it's not a sequel, it's an original film. And I think that really makes it a little more prestigious, and that makes me a little more excited to see a sequel, because now we have a sci-fi film with a sequel that's originally from this era. It's not from another era. It's not a sequel from a movie that came out 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but it's an original film that came out within, the last 3-4 years, and I think that's really important, and I think that's great to support movies like that, because God knows we need more original sci-fi movies. So let me go ahead and read off this quote a little bit from this article that I found. Edge of Tomorrow to change sequels. The 2014 science fiction film Edge of Tomorrow was a hit for both the actors Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, as well as for original science fiction films. The sequel's plans have gone public, and director Doug Liman has gone to great lengths to say that this film will quote-unquote change movies forever. On IGN, the director was quoted and stated, quote-unquote, "It's going to revolutionize how people make sequels. It really will." end quote. The quote is short but straight to the point. It is also bold and comes from the director, and it adds intrigue. It adds some intrigue into the sequel, especially since the first film's plot was a breath of fresh air in the world of science fiction films. Could the sequel play in the timelines in an even newer way? If the film supports Doug Liman's quote, it's no doubt that the eyes will be focused on the sequel. As of this day, though, the film has no release date. So, when you're adding a lot of hype into something, you really want to make sure that you have the support, you have the logistics of it, and the only thing that director Doug Liman has in this argument that he's trying to make is the first movie. The first movie was so revolutionary in terms of science fiction because it was a fresh breath of air. And you could say, well, it's Groundhog Day in science fiction. Well, yeah, but at the same time, I think that compared to other movies that have come from this era in science fiction that are mainly sequels or reboots or reimaginings, it's a breath of fresh air. I think that this film is definitely an original film. And I think that, the success of the first film definitely gives this director credit to say this. But at the same time, it's very, very bold to go and say this will change movie making forever and this will change how we make sequels. I would take a pause. I'm not buying this yet because I've seen nothing about this movie. I haven't heard nothing about the film's plot. I've heard nothing about its release date. So there's really nothing major to lean on except for the quote by the director and the first film. But here's the catch. I think in the world of movies today, in the worlds of building a franchise today, it is more crucial than ever to really, really make quality movies. And here's my explanation for it. You've seen what happened to movies like The Hobbit. Remember the first movie that came out, An Unexpected Journey? That movie was not as good as the first Lord of the Rings movie, no doubt. Nor was it that good to begin with. I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. But it was by no means worthy of a sequel. Hollywood today they've made the problem the last couple of years of making a franchise before the first movie even comes out. Before even the first movie goes into production. However, I think that movies are changing that mindset nowadays. I think that it's very slow, but it's getting there to where movies have to be good the first time in order to get a legit audience. I'll give you a good argument. For example, James Cameron's Avatar. That movie, the first movie, had to be successful, or else James Cameron would have been planned 7 sequels or whatever he has planned, or a park in Disney World about it. But it depended on the success and the quality of the first movie. Now, you can make arguments of how good the movie actually is, how very little original, how not original it was, but you can't argue the fact that it was very, very high quality at the time. This movie, Edge of Tomorrow, was quality. It was definitely a breath of fresh air amongst a lot of different movies. And it was good. It was really good. One of my favorite movies of 2014, actually. But I think that studios are seeing the success of first films and then build a franchise on it, just like how it should be, just like how it used to be, where Back to the Future, the first time, was very successful, high quality, good box office numbers, made a sequel. Star Wars, the first movie was great, fantastic, made its sequels, and here we are. Edge of Tomorrow, I'm not saying it has the potential to be one of those massive franchises, because don't get me wrong, the first movie by no means supports that argument. But I think studios are finally seeing the bigger picture. They're starting to see the bigger picture to where the first movies have to be of good quality, or else the box office numbers for sequels will drop. Hunger Games, they never really dropped that much, but the first movie's mediocre performance really hindered the studio, and the studio realized, okay, we've got to make something bigger or better, and they did. The second Hunger Game movie, Catching Fire, was the best movie of the entire 4-part series. And so studios are realizing that they need to be successful the first time. You can only make a first impression once. You can't do it twice. You can't try to impress audiences a second time because it's not going to work. You're going to lose the audiences within the first movie, and you're done. You're basically done. But The Edge of Tomorrow has a lot of potential because it is original, because it is successful, and because it has a following. Nowadays, it has a huge following. And when the second movie comes out, it's not going to have to be like, oh, it's a Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt movie. It's going to be saying it's an Edge of Tomorrow sequel. And people will go to the theaters to see this movie. I believe that regardless of how good or bad it is compared to the first one, it will get the box office numbers better than the first one, because the first one was definitely a shock. It was a shock. It was out of nowhere. But this movie is upcoming, and I don't know when it's going to come out. But when it comes out, there's going to be some box office numbers for it. So that's my prediction on it. Let me know what you think of the Edge of Tomorrow sequel plans. Do you think it will, in fact, change sequels forever? Or do you think that it's just another stepping stone, or it's another good franchise? Let me know in the comments below. So, we go from one successful franchise to the next. And speaking of a successful first film getting more movies, Deadpool. Deadpool has had some trouble recently. Specifically with the director. No big deal. You just lost your director. It's not a big deal. But it's no doubt that the 2016 year was very successful for comic book movies, especially for the Deadpool character played by Ryan Reynolds. Fox Studios wasted no time in planning a sequel and planning many sequels for the film, and planned to bring back director Tim Miller to helm the role again. Not the role again, but the directing chair again. However, he departed recently with no intentions to return to direct the sequel. It looks, however, that the film may have found its replacement. According to Mashable, David Leitch is considered a frontrunner to sign in for the film. While David Leitch might not be familiar with many, he was known for co-directing John Wick. He's also well connected with Deadpool star Ryan Reynolds, being his stunt coordinator in X-Men Origins Wolverine. He was also a second unit director for Captain America Civil War and Jurassic World. It's unknown how well he could do, but all fans could ask for is a good sequel from Fox Studios. My goodness, Fox Studios, you need another successful franchise, because the X-Men franchise, it took a bit of a nosedive with the Apocalypse film movie, because there was so much hype in it. There was so much intrigue to it because of the Days of Future Past success, because of First Class. Those movies were fantastic, but Apocalypse did not live up to those standards at all. But good thing for not Marvel, but good thing for Fox Studios, they were able to find a new franchise to kind of build on, and that's Deadpool. Like I said about Edge of Tomorrow, Deadpool was a pleasant surprise for many, especially being an R-rated movie and producing one of the highest grossing superhero performances ever in the box office. But it's a bad sign when you lose your director, especially when he first made the first movie. When he directed the first movie, it was purely out of passion and love for the character. It was very much inspired by the director's love for the character, and a lot of effort went into it. And it's a bad sign to me when the person who was inspired to direct the first one leaves for the second one. It's a bad sign because it becomes apparent that the studio doesn't really want more originality. They want to capitalize on what they already have, and to build on what they already have, and to add to what they already have, which is not a bad thing either. It's just that maybe the director wanted to take a little spin on things, wanted to do something a little different with the character, and maybe it was too much for the studio, even though it's an R-rated character. It's an R-rated character. I mean, what's off the limits? But Deadpool was great. I enjoyed the movie a lot, breaking the fourth wall, the comedy, the action was great. I enjoyed Ryan Reynolds in it a lot. But with the second movie, I think it's going to be fine with the stunts. I think it's going to be fine with the action. I think it'll be okay there. My only concern is the character and the story it goes. I hope that the Deadpool character doesn't become an annoying character, because the first one had a charm to him. And then some movies, when they make sequels to some of these characters, they kind of made them more annoying, or they kind of made them a little less special. And I think that was the case with the movie like The Minions. I hate The Minions. I didn't like them in Despicable Me. I didn't like their movie at all. But definitely there was a little divide between audiences of, the Minions were a little better supporting. They didn't really need their own movie. They were not strong enough to carry their own movie, which some people don't agree with, but I agree with. So Deadpool, I mean, you got to be careful with this character. You got to be very delicate with this character because here you have a successful R-rated superhero franchise movie, and you have sequels coming up. Don't screw it up. That's all I'm saying is Fox Studios better not screw it up because they've screwed up a lot of things in the past. The Wolverine character, their plans for the Origins movies, their conflicts with in the past with the X-Men 3, losing the director Bryan Singer and bringing in Brett Ratner, who was terrible. So they got to be really careful. Fox Studios doesn't have a great track record, but I'm still very hopeful. But we'll see how that goes. Let me know in comments below. Are you worried for Deadpool 2? Are you worried for Deadpool 2? Are you not? Let me know in the comments below. So we'll move on to our last topic for today, and we go to another successful Marvel franchise that's not in that's not in Fox Studios, but in Marvel Studios. And so we're approaching a new era to where Steve Rogers might not be Captain America anymore. That's the question being raised by many. But it looks that way from the comments from Kevin Feige, the head man at Marvel Studios. He admitted that the MCU might feature a Captain America film without Steve Rogers. Now I'm going to stop it right there. There's no doubt in my mind that Captain America will go on without Steve Rogers, without Chris Evans. It will go on because there's way too much money involved. The comic books have done it somewhat successfully, moving on from Steve Rogers characters into other Captain America characters. It doesn't really hurt the Marvel comics that much, even though they're taking a little beating right now. The Marvel comics are. But as far as the character Steve Rogers goes on the MCU, there's no doubt in my mind that Marvel Studios will move on from Steve Rogers. But let me move on further with this article. Here we go. During a chat with Collider, Kevin Feige was asked about the Captain America character in the future MCU films and stated, "If we look back at the comic books as our inspiration, as well from which this all springs, then the answer is no. I'm not saying we'll do it in the movie, but I've read Captain America comics that we don't have Steve Rogers in them." I don't like this comment at all because he's definitely teasing. I think he's teasing us a bit. He's like, I don't know, we might never see one, but the comic books have done it. Like I said, Marvel's gonna do this. They're gonna do this eventually. They're gonna recast Steve Rogers or get rid of him entirely and move on to a new Captain America character. And the reason why Kevin Feige's not being 100% on board with this is because what I said earlier about the Marvel comics not doing so hot because of the new directions they were going. He doesn't want the studios to reflect the comic books that much. He wants to kind of lean on his own direction. There's a lot of great comic book stories in Marvel comics, but let's be honest. Steve Rogers' character of Captain America is really the only character that is featured in a lot of merchandise and a lot of a lot of merchandise. He's Captain America. He's Captain America in the cartoon shows and the movies. And merchandise and T-shirts, he's Captain America to a lot of people, and it's gonna take a lot of effort for Marvel to move away from this. But hey, this should come as no surprise to many comic book fans, as many characters in the current MCU were actually Captain America at one point in the comic books. Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, and Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, have both taken the mantle of Captain America. It'll be interesting to see how Chris Evans will exit the MCU as Captain America since he's been the role since 2011. We might have our answer as soon as the big Avengers Infinity War Part 1 film coming out in 2018. Like I said, Chris Evans is not going to play the role forever. He's not going to play the role forever. And when he's done playing the role, I don't know if they're going to recast Steve Rogers and to continue on with this character or if they're going to reboot the character. But I think they will not reboot the character, but they will replace Captain America's Steve Rogers. I really think they will. Because there's just too much money involved in the word Captain America, and I love Chris Evans as Captain America and Steve Rogers. I think he fits the role perfectly. Definitely revived the character as of Captain America in terms of popularity. Um, but this is left open for discussion. I think this is left open for all of us to talk about. You have the freedom to tell me in the comments below what you think about this. But as far as me and what I want, I just want good Marvel movies. That's all I want. Just good Marvel movies. And the fact is that they're still making very good Marvel movies. Doctor Strange has a high Rotten Tomato score going on right now, and it's very favorable amongst all critics that I've seen recently. It carries high esteem, and it should come no surprise. This should come as no surprise, and I think that the future of Marvel looks great if they keep making these original films, like I stated last week. But as far as older characters like Captain America go, I mean, his first movie was when? 2011? That's a while ago, and people are still not tired of the character. People are still not tired of superhero craze or of Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. But there's going to come a point to where Marvel's going to move on from the character, and make a new Captain America. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But that's about it for this week, guys. This is a great week of discussion, great week of news, and I'm really excited to see what comes up next week. Like I said, if you have anything to say about any of these stories, comment below and let me know what you think. Leave a like for this video, that'd be fantastic. Subscribe to support the channel, all that good stuff, because I very much appreciate it. But got a lot to talk about for the future of Marvel Studios. There's a lot to talk about. We have Doctor Strange coming out next week, so a lot to look forward to. I'll definitely get my review up on this page as soon as I watch the film. But that's all from me here at Real Talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.